All right, we are live. Welcome back, everyone. Cody, welcome. How are you, sir? How has your week
Um,
been?
so far so good. It's doing okay. You?
Yeah, yeah. Long, long. I uh, I was supposed to have a day off yesterday, but I got called in, and uh, I'm not gonna have another day off Sunday. So it's a break, and yeah, it's one of those. So I'm glad we're getting to talk some awesome movies to de-stress. That and a little bit of courage juice, as I like to call it, a little bit of beverage to to
Yeah.
to shed off the day's unwantedness. But uh, but yeah, I'm here, and we are continuing this week with more Marvel, with
Yes, we
Iron
are.
Man 1 and 2 in the Marvel timeline, in the chain of events. So yeah, let's start with Iron Man 1. Cody.
All right.
Now,
Yeah. Just a
oh
moment.
yeah, I forgot to ask. Should we?
I'm gonna go into my phone, so apologies for the weird noise, but your audio's kind of weird. It could be my Wi-Fi, so I'm gonna get on my phone
Oh,
and
okay.
see if I can hear you better. Apologies for the noise.
No, no, it's okay. Apologies. I will get my equipment at some point.
Okay, and I'm gonna.
No, I do hear. I hear you
Oh,
better.
do you? That's so weird with
Yeah,
two of me.
maybe that's it. Like I hear you a lot better now. But
All right, now I'm gonna exit out. So, can you see me though?
yeah, I can see you and I can hear you a lot better. It was a little glitchy, but it seems to be a lot better now.
Yeah, there's something about StreamYard on my computer and anything else besides my phone that I'm having issues with.
Hmm.
So,
We might be checking out some new services. That and I'm about to have my service looked at to see if I can upgrade as far as speed. They were
mm-hmm.
supposed to offer it after the first of the year, so I want to see when that takes place, and that'll help on my end. Like being able to host and stuff like that, and not be so glitchy on my end. But yeah, we're talking Iron Man 1 and 2, and I forgot to ask, should we stream this over to our MySpace page?
Anyone out there, if you're watching later, do you still have your MySpace page? Is MySpace still active?
I you know
Tom, we need you. You turned out to be the least toxic and problematic social media creator out there.
right, right.
You just posted your favorite songs, and the most controversial thing was if you weren't on somebody's top 8.
Yeah. Did it get to top 8? I just remember top 5.
No, there was
Maybe
a
it was
top
top.
8, and there was even like top 16, top 32, and then you
Uh,
blogged. Yeah, you could
yeah,
custom make your page to whatever like background you wanted. Yeah.
I remember that sparkles and leaves, and I do remember that. I had the Enterprise A flying across the top of my screen like a little screensaver S type thing. It was pretty nifty, and then Facebook came along, and everyone's. I was a holdout. I stayed on MySpace until everybody was like, "Dude, nobody ever talks to you anymore because we're all over on Facebook." So I went to Facebook, and the rest is history.
So, did you have a Facebook by the time the social network came out?
I did. I did. but I didn't see
Okay.
the Social Network until about a year or two after it had come out. So
Okay.
I was
But
I was a little late bloomer, but now I totally get it now. You know.
But yeah, Iron Man, the movie that started it all, the movie that not just kick-started the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I may have said something controversial in the group chat earlier this week, but I think, and I meant no disrespect to The Dark Knight, because I love that movie. It's a great movie. But if we're talking strictly comic book movies, superhero movies, I think Iron Man made a bigger impact on the genre. I think The Dark Knight, as great as it is really a crime drama that happens to have the Batman characters in it.
You know why that is, right? Because Iron Man was marketed not only as an adult movie, but a kids movie. Not a lot of little kids, went to see The Dark Knight. And if they did, they were with a parent. But Iron Man was more toy marketable. They already had I mean, I don't know. I think it was just being able. They used the formula that it was, and it wasn't. It wasn't really. It wasn't a dark adult comic book movie like The Dark Knight is.
Nor should it be, because I think nothing against those three films. I love the Nolan trilogy. I even like The Dark Knight Rises, but not every comic book movie or superhero does that work for.
Right.
And we needed something like this. And a little backstory for those of you that don't know. You know, of course, comic book movies were already popular at this point in time, largely due to X-Men, but even more largely to Sam Raimi's first Spider-Man film, which was the first movie to ever gross over $100 million on opening weekend. And
Right.
so that opened the floodgates once Spider-Man was a huge success for other Marvel comic adaptations. But most of those post Spider-Man and X-Men were not that good. And Kevin Feige, who is now the man who runs Marvel and is pretty much the guy who oversees this whole cinematic universe, was an executive on a lot of these movies. And he was seeing that, like, well, they're not really trying to make these movies for anybody that wants to see these movies, you know.
Right.
They're not for the fans. And he's like, we should be making movies like, he basically is like, we should make movies like you're reading an issue of Marvel Comics.
Exactly. And that's what these movies are. A lot of people, I get a lot of complaints. Well, they're all flashy and comic booky, and I'm like, yeah, because they're comic book characters. They're supposed to be over the top and tons of special effects, and you know. And I'll tell you, around the time that Thor 2 came out, I started to get Marvel fatigue a little bit.
So you got Marvel fatigue early. You got it.
I did.
Because I think a lot of people have it right now. But
yeah.
I think more so than where they were with those other earlier movies. I think more so now it's like reading a comic book.
Oh, for sure. But yeah, like, and good for Jon Favreau for.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of which, another thing, and again, I'm not throwing shade, though I do have some personal character issues with Christopher Nolan and his recent film of demanding it be seen in the theaters during a pandemic. But yeah, Jon Favreau, not an auteur director, right? He's an actor who basically became a director to kind of give himself jobs and roles. You know, he's a journeyman director, but he helped shape this thing, and he already did Swingers, which he wrote, which basically gave him and Vince Vaughn careers.
Right.
Elf is considered a holiday classic by now.
Yeah.
And yeah, he helped shape the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and now he's playing in Star Wars land.
I know it. The man, and also a little tidbit is, he and Peter Billingsley are childhood friends. Or life.
Oh, are they? I knew they were producing partners. Which, did you know Peter Billingsley is in this movie?
Yes, that's what I was going to bring up. Is Peter Billingsley is in this movie because he and Jon Favreau are such good friends. And matter of fact, Jon Favreau helped get him started, kind of on his career path, or helped him out a lot along the way. I don't know about got him started, but he has.
I was going to say, I don't know if they knew each other when The Christmas Story came out.
Right, and what I mean by childhood, probably 20s. You know, they've been friends for a good long while, anyway. But yeah, I thought it was him. I thought it was great seeing him in this movie play a scientist, and Obadiah Stane getting peeved at him because he was like, well, I'm not
Tony Stark built this in a cave with nothing but, I forget what he said, and he's like, well, I'm not Tony Stark.
yeah, I'm a peon. But I love that. I thought it was great.
So I can't remember what the general feel was when they announced that Robert Downey Jr. had been cast as Tony Stark, but I remember thinking like, oh, that's perfect. That is perfect casting.
Oh yeah, we had this came out while we had our comic book shop over in Nacogdoches. It came out at the perfect time, because all of our Iron Man stuff went off the shelf. Matter of fact, we set up a booth in the lobby and sold books right out in the lobby of the theater. But yeah, it came out at the perfect time, I think, as when it did. Like, even the special effects even kind of hold up still.
Oh yeah.
The only thing that really dates it is the MySpace thing. And yes, Tony Stark is really douchey in this.
But he's supposed to be. That's part of his character journey of how he changes and becomes like someone who actually cares. And
like, we go from, and I don't want to skip ahead, but we go from ginormous cliffside Playboy mansion to humble cabin in the woods with his wife and daughter by
the end of all this, yeah.
So you do see how he goes from complete and total douchebag to like humbled, superhero, I guess.
Well, he's a very privileged, rich individual who's gotten basically everything he's wanted. He is one of the smartest people in the room. So he has this arrogance too, because he knows he's smart and he knows he can do these things. And he's just like, I can do whatever I want because I'm rich, I'm white, and I'm powerful, and I'm a genius.
Right.
And yeah, him, and which I know this is in the comics, but I guess because the comics were written in the 60s, I guess he was in Vietnam instead of in Afghanistan when he gets basically tried to be killed and then is like a prisoner of war, so to speak, and then has to create the suit to survive.
Right. Yeah, I believe it was Vietnam era. when it originally took place.
But
I,
it's brave of Robert Downey Jr. to not only, I mean, oh yeah, brave, he gets like this multi-million-dollar deal, but I mean, this is a guy who had just recently in the few years become sober, and he's going to play a character that basically has similar traits that he does as a real life human being.
right, and I've watched interviews where he compared that. He was like, matter of fact, there's a scene in there where he pulls up to do the first press conference after being captured, and he has hamburgers. He has Burger King hamburgers, and he said, I can't remember if he just come off of a high or out of failed rehab or something like that, but his wife basically gave him a come to Jesus meeting, and he was sitting on the beach and he was eating like a couple of Burger King hamburgers, and that's when it like hit him that yeah, I need to do better for my kids and my wife and clean myself up and kick the drug habit and the booze or whatever it is he had to kick at the time. And so that was I thought that was a cool little nod, because he pulls up and he's eating a couple of Burger King hamburgers and he goes into the press conference, and I think that's when it kind of dawns on him. He sits down and he's like, I was building these weapons for destruction, and turns out they've been, they're being sold all around. They're falling into the wrong hands. They're killing people. They're killing innocent people. And I need to do something for good. We need to turn this around. We need to focus on environment or whatever it was he was going to do with the arc reactor, maybe. I don't know, but
yeah, and I think the casting of him is vital to how well this movie works, because if you just look at the story and the movie itself, it's a pretty standard origin superhero story that we have seen before, right? It's not.
Oh, it is.
It's not doing anything spectacular in that part, but I think Robert Downey Jr.'s charm and the screenplay, which, from what I hear, a lot of it wasn't even written when they started filming this. And they actually called Shane Black, because Shane Black, who did Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, which is a big part of Robert Downey Jr.'s like comeback, which I guess is why he ends up getting the job for Iron Man 3, kind of helped them like shadow write this screenplay or come up with dialogue for it.
Nice. Yeah, I know.
Or at least gave them notes.
Yeah, I had heard where it's a fly by the city. It turned into a by the seat of their pants situation, kind of just doing things as they went. So I can only imagine how crazy it was.
And I know a lot of people like to talk smack about Gwyneth Paltrow because of like who she is outside of her movie roles and things, but
she played.
I think her and Robert Downey Jr. have great chemistry together in this movie, and actually all of them.
Yeah, I enjoyed her. I enjoy her as Pepper Potts. Like, I'm not a big Jeremy Renner fan outside of him being Hawkeye, but he plays a great Hawkeye, But what's his name? Scott Lang is just perfect. You can't.
Paul Rudd. I mean, maybe one of the most charming people on the planet.
Man, yeah, he could charm the socks off of me. But I cannot wait for Quantumania either, because that trailer looks awesome.
But yeah, this movie is just a lot of fun, and I think it's always going to be an important film, not just in the superhero genre, but even in the MCU. I think you can't not talk about this movie, not just because it was the first one, but because it proved you could do these non-popular characters and people would go see it because this movie made a lot of money. And that was kind of Feige's plan. He was like, and I forget how we got off track of when I was talking about this, but yeah, he was seeing that the studios weren't really respecting the material or adapting it properly, and he was like, we should just do our own thing. That's what Stan Lee wanted to do all those decades ago when he came to Hollywood.
Right.
You know, Stan Lee spent he went to Hollywood, I think, in the 70s and spent the better part of 30 years trying to get movies made of his characters. And they're like, well, what characters do we that are Marvel properties that are not tied up with another movie studio we can make movies out of? Iron Man. They tried to make it for a movie for years with Tom Cruise. I remember him being considered for the role. They didn't have Thor, and they didn't have Captain America. And Kevin Feige's like, well, perfect. That's basically the core Avenger team.
Right.
And
yeah, it's setting up that long game that has brought us to where we're at now, where everything is just intertwined and connected, and we've had these great story arcs, and miniseries was the smartest move that they ever did. Ever. I mean, like, I don't know if it was a plan from all along, or they were like, hey, Iron Man just turned out to be amazing and it made us all this money. We need to start setting this up now. If we're going to start bringing in all these characters and doing it the way we want, we need to set this up now and start connecting these and bringing them in. You know, let's start connecting everything.
And I'm pretty sure they already had a plan to do Thor and Captain America. I can't remember if they had already been announced and they were just waiting to see how well Iron Man did to get those projects greenlit. Because I'm wondering why Iron Man 2 came out before Thor and Captain America, but that may be the reason. And because Iron Man was so successful, they were able to get the sequel off before they could get everything on those other two films.
Right.
But yeah, this movie's just a lot of fun, and I think it holds up. You know, it's probably still one of the best origin films in the MCU.
Oh, totally agree. It's up there with Captain America and who else? Probably now Black Panther was not really an origin story, but
I know it's not technically an origin story because he's introduced in Civil War, but it's his first film on his own.
And Ant-Man. Yeah. I think Ant-Man, the Scott Lang storyline that they went with, which I thought was brilliant, instead of going with
Hank Pym,
with a younger Hank Pym and making Hank Pym older, I thought was great, because I read the Scott Lang series through Civil War and loved his character, because they did, even in the comic, they went with more of the comedic spin on it, where he was a burglar and just got caught up at the wrong place at the wrong time and ends up becoming Ant-Man. And I love it. That's another great origin.
Yeah, that movie is surprisingly fun, and also when we get to it, we'll talk about why it works so well, despite its problematic issues of getting made.
Right. Well, so I guess we want to move on to Iron Man 2. Hang on just a second. Let me go see where my wife is. Give me
Sure.
5 seconds.
I was going to see if, while he's waiting, Iron Man, the original Iron Man, is a lot of fun. it's cool to see Jeff Bridges as a bad guy. I don't think Obadiah Stane is really that great of a villain. Of course, it creates the whole problem that people complain about in the Marvel movies where they're basically fighting an evil version of the hero character. But you didn't really need a big baddie for the first movie. I think Robert Downey Jr.'s charm sells this film, and Jeff Bridges does fine as the character. I mean, I guess when we get to Iron Man 2, we'll talk about the whole Terrence Howard situation, which is sad because from what I remember, it's his agents that kind of screwed him out of being in those sequels because they tried to get him a pay price that was similar to how high a pay price they were paying Robert Downey Jr. and Marvel and Disney wouldn't do it. And that's how we got Don Cheadle in the role of Rhodey. Oh, you're back?
Yeah, I'm back. So we can go ahead and move on into Iron Man 2.
You don't have anything else you wanted to talk about with Iron Man?
I think we covered it. I absolutely love this movie. Now, again, I didn't really get Marvel fatigue, but I'm just really keeping up with the new stuff, the newer movies as they come out. I'm behind on some series, but so it'd been a couple of years since I've revisited a lot of the earlier films, and I'm really glad because I didn't forget how fun they were, but it was fun going back and getting to revisit and just see how awesome they were. And I don't know, they still amaze me. I still get that feeling of like, oh man, this just was the start of something grand. You know, it was just really awesome.
Yeah. And so, yeah, Iron Man 2. I think this is a movie that kind of gets unfairly pooped on. It is nowhere near as good as the first Iron Man, but I don't think it's the worst Marvel movie.
Do you know what I compare it to? And I don't know if I'll try to explain it the best I can. I compare it to Thor: Love and Thunder, where it feels like an offshoot, like a one-off issue, just a special double-size issue, you know. So it's still kind of setting stuff up, but the villain is still kind of, I don't want to call him bland because he was a cool villain, but they still went with the safe route, it feels like, and it felt like watching Iron Man 1 again in the last battle, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get what you're saying there, and I also get the complaint that people say that, oh, it just feels like a tease for the Avengers movie, right? And that makes sense because Black Widow is introduced in this movie, and there's a nod to Captain America. They're setting up Thor. We get Nick Fury more in this movie.
But you know, I'm here for that. I still think it's a fun movie, and I don't know. I think again, it was a good segue into an Avengers, introducing us or teasing an Avengers movie. And,
well, now you talked about a bland villain, so I guess you're referring to the Mickey Rourke character, because I'm gonna tell you, Sam Rockwell steals the movie for me as Justin Hammer.
Yes, I was gonna say he is a treasure in this movie, and Sam Rockwell is he. I don't want to say he saves this movie, but he really elevates the movie from what it probably would have been without him.
I think I would feel more of what the complaints are with this movie if it wasn't for Sam Rockwell, because every time he's on screen, I'm like, man, this guy's just stealing the movie from everyone.
Well, he does in everything he's in. Everything that he is in is just brilliant. But he was supposed to come back for Armor Wars before they canceled it.
Oh, was he? Well, he does show up briefly, and there's a one shot, which I guess I'm teasing ahead because if you guys have seen Iron Man 3, which I think Iron Man 3 rules, so I will be defending that movie when we get to it. But with the Ben Kingsley character, he gets, he gets kidnapped in prison by the real Ten Rings, the Mandarin, which does get paid off in Shang-Chi. But Justin Hammer is briefly in there in the same prison,
Nice.
and it's Sam Rockwell.
Oh, that's
So,
awesome.
but I mean, I love the scene where they're basically homaging the Taxi Driver scene where he goes to buy guns and he's like showing off all that stuff to Rhodey.
Yeah. And then he tries to use, it was that little missile, and he was like, "This is the granddaddy, this is the big gun," and he named off all this alloys and stuff that it's made out of, and at the end, when they're fighting, he's like, "Okay, step back," and it pops up out of his chest armor, and it just kind of fizzles out.
Yeah.
It like just clinks right off his chest. And then Tony was like, "Hammer Tech, huh?" And he goes, "Don't."
And I understand why they went with Mickey Rourke. He was coming off the success of The Wrestler. He got Oscar nominations. It was like kind of a comeback for him.
Right.
But maybe not have him play a Russian. I don't know. And maybe Mickey Rourke and Robert Downey Jr., that's too many intense character actors in one movie.
Yeah, he reminded me of a really buff grandma in some scenes. The way he dressed and those low cut, I call them low cut grandma jeans, and or low waisted. I don't know what you call them, but it was a style back in that 2000s period. And he was wearing like the cut off shirts and stuff, and I was like, man, somebody's feeling sassy.
Yeah, and I think it was him that requested or demanded his character have a bird or whatever.
Bird. He likes saying bird in Russian in his favorite.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I heard he was kind of a nightmare to deal with, which I've heard that about him in general.
Oh, is he a diva?
Yeah. And and I know a lot of people were disappointed because they wanted this to be Demon in the Bottle, which they do kind of play a little bit with adapting in this storyline.
Yeah, they dabbled.
And I think Favreau did want to make this a bit darker of a movie, but Marvel and Disney wouldn't let him.
Now, was Disney involved at this point with Iron Man?
I don't know if Disney was involved particularly with the production of Iron Man 2 because they didn't buy Marvel to 2009. So I think the really first fully film they were involved in was The Avengers.
Okay.
Because I think all the rest of them, besides The Incredible Hulk, are Paramount. That's the studio that distributed them.
Yeah.
But Marvel was its own studio.
Paramount. Right.
So basically, Paramount was... So maybe Disney wasn't. It was just Marvel being like, well, this is still a family film, so we can't have alcoholic Tony Stark.
Yeah, and wasn't there another storyline that they dabbled in with his virus, his technovirus that he had, or he was getting Animus? Or no,
Yeah, you're probably right. I don't know Iron Man comics that well.
Yeah, I dabbled. I was heavily into them, and then after the comic book shop, I kind of my comic reading declined severely. So I don't know what's, but I seem to remember there being a story arc. And if anyone out there, if you can correct me or post a link or something, that'd be great. But where he was getting sick, and he had those lines, those what looked like techno veins, like crawling onto his arm and his chest and stuff,
Right.
slowly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really I really enjoyed this movie too, and I think maybe it was watching them back to back like I did because again I haven't watched these in several years.
That probably
So-
helps because that's also my justification for why I don't think Quantum of Solace is a bad movie. I'm like, well, if you watch it right after Casino Royale, it's actually kind of pretty good. So maybe that's the same thing with Iron Man 2. If you watch it right after the first Iron Man, but you know, Robert Downey Jr. is still charming. Him and Gwyneth Paltrow are still great together. I think Scarlett Johansson does a good job as Black Widow. Samuel L. Jackson come in and does his little bit. It's good. We already talked about how awesome Sam Rockwell is. The late great Gary Shandling is really good in those scenes as the senator.
And
You know?
the fact that you know his Hydra is, I'm sorry, spoiler, but is even better watching it because he has
Yeah, that
them-
they paid it off and he came back as a Hydra member in Winter Soldier. Yeah.
So yeah, that their little like at the end where he had to present them the medals, and he was just like, he couldn't stand it the whole time, but he had to play face and make nice.
Yeah.
It was so
Made a comment about a little prick.
yeah. And then and War Machine, we get War Machine out of this.
We get War
And-
Machine out of this, and I don't know if you heard me while you went to check to see where Lindsay was and we were on mute, but I was explaining the whole Terrence Howard, Don Cheadle thing, you know, and the reason they had to recast is basically Terrence Howard's agent screwed him in this role because, you know, they didn't sign these multi-picture deals yet because they didn't know how many of these movies they were going to be doing. And of course, Iron Man's a huge success. And so they up Robert Downey Jr.'s salary, and I forget how many movies they, you know, say, oh, well, we want you to appear in Iron Man in so many movies. And Terrence Howard's agent's like, well, if you're going to pay Robert Downey Jr. that much, you need to at least get Terrence Howard at least applicable to the same amount of raise. And Marvel was like, we're not paying War Machine the same as we're paying Iron Man. And so they went to Don Cheadle, who agreed to take the role, but they gave him like, I think I read somewhere now that recently that like he was given only like a certain amount of time to respond to the deal.
Wow. Well, I mean, you know, you're getting in bed with Disney and a franchise, so you know you're going to be set because you get residuals from toy likeness, and video game likeness, and shirts, and like all that. You get just a tiny piece compared to the whole amount, but that tiny piece is still a huge chunk of money. So, I mean, you're kind of setting yourself up, and plus you get to play War Machine. Like, people are going to remember you. Don't get me wrong, Hotel Rwanda, great film, sad, depressing, but he was great in that. He was great in Boogie Nights, but everyone's going to be like, hey, Don Cheadle, that's War Machine, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, no, and he's a good choice. And I remember, you know, that just happens, which, guys, you can totally recast a role and not freak out.
Right? And it worked. Like, every time I very rarely think of Terrence Howard as War Machine. Don't get me wrong, Terrence Howard was good in it, you know, but I really enjoyed Don Cheadle's War Machine.
Yeah, he did he's a good actor, and you know, we get that really cool scene of them fighting at Tony's birthday party.
Yeah, that was great. I like that.
And I saw this at the midnight premiere wherever I was living at the time, and it was with a group of. Well, I wasn't with a group. I was with one other guy, but there was like nerds all in the audience. Like there were people playing Pokemon cards while we were waiting in line for the movie to open. And it was in Ohio, so they showed the Super 8 trailer, and everyone in the audience like freaked out because Super 8 takes place in Ohio.
Huh.
So it was a fun screening too. So that probably helped me enjoy the movie more than some people.
Nice.
Like
We went.
yeah, it's not. It's probably my least favorite Iron Man movie, but it's still fun.
Yeah, it's still a fun movie.
And what do you think of supposedly there are rumors that the little kid that's briefly in the movie is apparently Peter Parker?
Oh, I think that's been shot down.
Has that theory been shot down?
Yeah,
That's not true.
It's a good theory. I think it would be kind of cool, but I think it's been shot down.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what else is.
It was kind of
I
like
mean,
the kid in Jurassic Park where that Grant scares with the
or are they trying to say that's Chris Pratt?
yeah.
Oh, well, they should have made a reference then in that forgettable movie they just did with everybody in it.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, it's my. I get why it's not well liked, but I have fun with it.
Yeah, like I said, it feels like a one-off, like just a fun, like supersized comic book of an Iron Man adventure, where cool characters pop up. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, we get another actor playing Howard Stark. I forget the guy's name. He was on Mad Men. That's all I remember.
I thought that was a great scene with all the old footage, the real footage, where it was like a Walt Disney scenario.
That's what it reminded me of, like Walt Disney introducing like a theme park or something.
Yeah, I think that's what they were trying to get at. Was he was this Walt Disney-esque character introducing the World's Fair. Or the Stark Fair, I guess it would be.
Yeah, the Stark Fair. And I guess Jon Favreau gets more bits of comedy because he gets beat up by Black Widow, and then it takes him forever to fight that one guard.
giving himself some screen time. Who would though?
Oh, I think I like him as Happy Hogan. I think that's a good.
Well,
I think that's a good.
Yeah, he's made it into the Spider-Man movies.
Yeah. Yeah, nothing against Jon Favreau. I think he got burned out making this movie. I think he got mad that they wouldn't let him do the Avengers movie. But I guess not enough to not keep working for Disney because he's did those 2 Disney remakes and now he's on The Mandalorian.
Right.
So, but hey, we got Chef in between, which is a really good movie.
I need to revisit that.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, I really I'm glad I got to see these back to back and revisit them.
Yeah, I think that probably helped our enjoyment with part 2 more as well, watching it immediately after part 1. Well, I didn't watch it immediately after, but I watched it within a day or 2 of watching part 1.
Yeah, I think we watched them within a couple of days of each other, so it was still, everything was so fresh and and everything. So what are we going to cover next week?
Well, if we're staying with Marvel, I wanted to suggest something. So the next two films in the MCU timeline are Incredible Hulk and Thor, because apparently Iron Man 2, Thor, and Incredible Hulk all happen around the same time.
Right.
But since Avengers closes out phase 1, and I feel like we should talk about a movie that doesn't really get talked about, that's not really a part of the MCU. But I feel like The Incredible Hulk, while also being a reboot, is also kind of a sequel. And I feel like maybe we should talk about Ang Lee's Hulk along with The Incredible Hulk.
Yeah, we could do that. I think that'd be cool.
Because The Incredible Hulk does take place after, and now they could have like not ignored all the weirder stuff Ang Lee did, but basically it is kind of a sequel to that movie in a way.
Yeah, it is a little bit. But I'm okay.
I mean, not technically, but I mean, it does, like the so-called events have already happened. So
Right.
They're at least acknowledging, like, hey, there was this other Hulk movie, even though we recast the actor and everything, and then they're going to recast the actor again.
Right. Yeah, I'm good with that.
Yeah, so that would be. So we had an Iron Man week, so next week will be Hulk week.
That'll be pretty cool. Again, I haven't seen those in ages either, so.
Yeah, and I feel like the Ang Lee Hulk movie is actually a good movie that people, for whatever reason, didn't like or didn't gel with when it came out.
I loved it.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting made movie. But, and I'll share it now, and I'll try to bring it up again in case Nick or Rachel or somebody is with us next week. But Ang Lee's producing partner, and maybe even writing partner too, when they're making Hulk, he goes to one of the premieres of Spider-Man, because Spider-Man came out the year before, and watches Spider-Man, and it ends with Spider-Man swinging to the American flag or whatever, and crowd applauds and everything, and he's like, we totally missed the mark on what people want out of these superhero movies. I don't think people are gonna like our movie.
Oh, that is one thing about the first Spider-Man movie. It is very patriotic. I remember.
Yeah.
I remember the. Now I have the teaser trailer on film.
You have the
Spider-Man.
where he posts the guys sticks them to the World Trade Center.
Yes, and it's a reel of film. It was the trailer that they had to send back, and I found it when I worked in Jacksonville, and Tony gave it to me. The first manager I worked for, and then I also, and I haven't seen it in years, but I know I've got it somewhere. I have the poster that's the close up of his mask, and you see the reflection in his eyes of the two towers, and they had to take all those down and dispose of them as well because of reasons.
Yeah. But yeah, that's what I think we should cover. And yeah, these are Iron Man. The original Iron Man rules. It's a very good origin story movie, and I think it's not only one of the vital MCU movies. I think if you're talking about comic book superhero movies, it's right up there with Richard Donner's Superman, Tim Burton's Batman, and even The Dark Knight at this point in the genre, and Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, and the first X-Men movie. And like all those aren't the best movies in those franchises, but like they were game changers.
Oh, of course. They were. It's like every origin movie. Um, it's hit or miss, but that means the second movie, sometimes is even better or might be better.
Might be better. I think Iron Man 2 is not better, but I think it's entertaining for what it is.
Right.
And it's certainly better than another sequel that we'll be talking about soon.
Is it the God of Thunder?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thor the Dark World. We'll see. That might be my least favorite MCU movie.
I don't know. It's been ages since I've seen it, so I'll have to give it another watch. But I remember feeling kind of let down by it. Like, it wasn't the best sequel. Like, again, it feels like another just offshoot.
I'm interested to see how the Incredible Hulk holds up for you, because the last time I watched it, I was kind of like, this is okay. But maybe it's because the whole Edward Norton of it all now, and now that we got Mark Ruffalo, it's kind of like, well, I don't even know if this movie like's even important anymore.
Right. I forget about it a lot of times. But
well, it is an MCU movie, but Marvel doesn't have the rights to it. But we'll get into that next week with the whole Hulk.
Yeah, I'm ready to do those back to back. That's going to be fun. So that'll be interesting. But all right, guys. So, next week the Hulk, and I'm glad that we got to talk Iron Man 1 and 2 tonight. I'm really digging. I have not watched these movies in a long time. I've just been watching the ones that have been released here in the last couple of years, and even then, I've only watched them once. So I'm kind of glad that I'm getting to revisit all these Marvel movies and watch everything.
I'm trying to think which ones I've only seen once, because Captain Marvel was I hadn't seen that since it came out,
Right.
and I haven't watched Ant-Man and the Wasp since it came out either.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And I haven't seen any of the Spider-Man sequels since they came out. Just Homecoming's the only one I've seen more than once.
Right. I think the last one I only watched once.
Yeah, I've only seen No Way Home once. All the recent ones, other than Eternals, for whatever reason, because we covered it, I don't think I've seen more than once. I've seen bits and pieces of Thor and Doctor Strange when other people were watching them. Like the second ones. Yeah. Well, it's the fourth Thor, but yeah.
Yeah.
And Wakanda Forever comes out on Disney Plus on the 1st.
Oh, nice, because I have not seen that yet.
Yeah, by the time we get done with this, I don't know because it'll be June or July by the time we get done with this, accounting for breaks and talking about other things. I don't know if Ant-Man will be available to stream, but Guardians will just have come out in May, and I think we'll be done before Captain Marvel 2 comes out with the MCU.
Nice. Yeah, I'm excited. Lots of Marvel goodness. I'm kind of, again, I kind of fell into the Marvel fatigue where I was kind of like, okay, another Marvel movie. I'll watch it. And now I'm kind of getting pumped and, getting back into my Marvel.
Yeah, I mean, I get it, because, most of them, you get what you get, and you either like it or you don't.
Right.
So, it's not like, oh my god, these movies are amazing. But there are some of these, when we get to them, that I really, really like. So, like a lot.
Yeah.
And we're actually going to be getting to one really soon that I think is pretty damn good. And I think it still holds up.
Which one?
The Avengers.
Ooh, yeah. That was an amazing, amazing movie.
So,
Like, that's a perfect movie that brought everyone together. They did it in such a great way. But we'll get into that.
yeah.
All right, man. Well, thanks for coming on, and I'm glad we got to talk. Yeah, I'm. I am distressed now and ready to go and get ready to watch the Hulk maybe. So.
Oh, well. Okay.
No, I don't know if I'll watch it. I'm thinking of getting back into Battlestar. I don't know yet.
Dang. Okay.
Yeah, well, it's been a couple of years.
There you go. So much TV.
Yeah, I know it.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah. Everybody, thanks for watching. Join us next week as we Hulk it out.
Yeah, Hulk smash.
Have a good night and enjoy the rest of your week. The weekend is almost here.
Word.